Hello, welcome to Z Marie Design. Let's create it from this to that upcycled denim bag. Let's get started. First, you'll take your pair of old jeans and you'll cut off the hem, either with your scissors or with your rotary cutter. Next, cut up that center seam to open up both of your pant legs. Open up both pant legs. Smooth out that denim. Next, place your pattern piece on top of the pant leg. You can cut these one at a time, centering that side seam. I'm just going to cut them both at the same time, making sure that my denim is on all sides of my pattern. Pin your pattern piece in place and cut out 2 of your denim panel. My pattern piece measures 16.5 by 16.5. You can save that piece for your applique pieces and to make another bag from the top part of the denim. Also cut 2 of the pattern pieces from your lining fabric, pin it in place, and cut it out. And we'll be sewing with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So you'll have 2 pattern pieces cut out for your lining and 2 for your denim panels. So let's remove the back pockets from the other part of the denim that's left. You can unpick that pocket piece or you can just cut it out. I cut it out and I leave a 1/2 inch seam allowance because I'll turn it under. That way I don't have any raw edges on that denim, and also on the turned under seam allowance. I'll do that on all the sides. Now to prepare our handle, our pattern piece measures 5 inches by 24. Cut that out from one of the pant leg. You'll need 2 of the denim handles. You can also make these handles longer or shorter. Now to prepare our handles, we will first find the center of that, press it to crease, fold in the raw edge to the center, press the other side of the raw edge and press, and then fold it over again. That way all of our raw edges on the inside, and we will top stitch both sides of our handles. And I usually increase my stitch length to 3.5 to 3.6. You can also use a contrasting thread just to add more detail. Make sure you're sewing with a jeans needle, top stitch needle, or a quilting needle through all of this denim. So now your handles are done. An alternative to the handles, you can also use the waistband from your denim. Just cut your waistband off. I'm cutting underneath my belt loops to unpick the belt loops, which I'll save and use for a later project. You can choose to cut straight through the belt loop, cut straight through the label, or you can unpick the label and reattach it in another part of the bag. So you'll need 2 of your waistbands for your handles. Now they do measure longer than 24 inches, so I'm going to put down my handle pattern piece and I will cut off 24 inches off of each of the waistbands. And I'm not going to leave the detailing of the button or the buttonhole, but you can choose to leave that part. but just make sure that you cut the handles down to 24 inches or leave it longer if you prefer. Next, we can cut out our appliques. I'm going to cut a flower shape. You can cut the flower shape from your pattern, or you can freehand draw it like I'm doing and just cut as many flowers as you prefer on your bag. You can also cut these at varying shapes and layer those. And also cut out a flower center for the flowers. So I'll cut out all of those flowers, pin them on my denim panel piece randomly, and then I will zigzag stitch around the edge. I'll also put a flower on my pocket. You can also sew these on with a straight stitch if you'd like that ragged look, because the denim will fray. I'm now going to attach the upcycled denim pocket to the front part of my denim panel, and I'm just following the stitching line that was already on the pocket when I removed it. I'm back stitching at the beginning and the end several times just for more reinforcement in that area, and I'm following the second part of the stitch line that's on the pocket, just outlining the shape of the pocket. You can also use these upcycled denim pockets as pockets for your lining too. So your pocket is attached and all of your appliques should be attached to. And you can also use a button or a bead as an added detail in that center. Next, for my inside pockets, I'm going to cut it from the lining fabric, and my pocket measures 7.5 by 7.5. I will cut out 2 of those, so I'm only going to attach 1 pocket on the inside of this bag. So I cut out my pattern piece, and then I will take those pieces and I will turn them right sides together, and I will sew on all sides, but making sure to leave a 2 to 3 inch opening for turning. So start at one side where your opening will start, and I'm sewing with a 1/4 inch seam allowance on all sides of the pocket, making sure to backstitch at the beginning and the end of that opening. Next, I'll cut off those corners to reduce the bulk before turning. Turn the pocket right side out, making sure to use your turning tool to poke out those corners. Once your pocket is all turned and all of your corners have been pushed out, take it to the ironing board, give it a good press, and turn under those seam allowances that are left from your opening. And then you will top stitch at the opposite side of the opening. Next, let's attach our pocket and our magnetic snaps. Find the center of on your lining. I'm just going to finger press, find the center. Then you will measure down, and with the marking tool mark down 1.5 inches from the center. That's where your magnetic snap will go. Mark down 3 inches from the center. That's where your pocket will go. You find the center of your pocket, finger press, and the top stitching goes right on that 3 inch mark. Pin it in place, and then you'll sew around all 3 sides. You'll catch that opening that you left for turning when you attach the pocket. Backstitch at the beginning and at the end. And you see here a close up, I stitch within about 1/8 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch to make sure I catch the bottom part of that opening. Next, let's attach our magnetic snap. Your snaps will come with 4 pieces, a mommy, a daddy, brother, sister, and they each have clothes. That's how I remember I have all my pieces. So the brother sister part is also your pattern piece. Paste it on your inner facing. I'm using upcycled batting. Mark those slits on each side and do the same on each of your lining panels. Next, you'll cut on those markings that you made. You'll cut a little slit on each of the interfacing, and on the lining panels, just a small slit. That's where your prongs will go. Just checking to make sure my slits are there. Next, take one of your magnetic snaps and you will enter in from the right side of the fabric, and the prongs will come out through the wrong side of the fabric. Turn it over, put down your interfacing next, and then put on one of the brother-sister washers. And then you'll take the handle of your scissors and you will press those prongs one side to the left, one side to the right. And one half of your magnetic snap is now inserted into the lining. And we'll go on and move to the other side. Again, you'll take the magnetic snap. It'll enter in on the right side of the fabric. Prongs come up through the wrong side. Place over your interfacing. You can also use a piece of your lining for this. Place the washer on top with the handle of the scissors. Fold over one part of that prong to the left, the other part of the prong to the right, and your magnetic snap is now attached. You can check that it goes together. Next, we're going to attach our handles to our denim panels. I'm going to find the center of my panel and I'm going to mark it with a pin. Then I'll fold in one side of the end and I'll mark that. I'll fold in the other side toward the center there and I'll mark that. That's where your handles will go. So when you put your handles on your shoulder, they'll lay like this. So now fold it back onto the panel and pin it in place. I usually do it this way to make sure that my handles are straight. Next, you will do a basting stitch about 1/4 inch from the edge. Use that measurement there that you did to put the handles on as your guide for your second panel, making sure that your handles line up. Pin it in place and again, do a basting stitch there, about 1/4 inch from the edge. Now if you are using your waistband as your handle, you will attach it the same way. So now our handles are sewn on. Let's put our bag together. You're going to right sides facing, match up your side seams, pin it in place. Match up your bottom seam, pinning that in place. And then you will take it to the sewing machine and sew a 1/2 inch seam allowance on all 3 of those sides. After you've done that, make sure now to press those seams open. This will make it easier to box those corners. So to box the corner, you are going to bring the side seam up to meet the bottom seam and pin that in place. And do the same on the other side. Match up the side seam to meet the bottom seam, pinning, and then you'll sew 1/2 inch seam allowance. After you've sewn and your corners are boxed, trim about a 1/4 inch seam allowance off of there just to reduce the bulk when you're turning. Now your denim part of your bag is all done. Turn it right sides out and push out those boxed corners. Now let's move on to the lining, right sides facing. You're going to match up your side seams, pinning in place, matching up your bottom seams, this time making sure to leave a 4 to 5 inch opening. I'm going to mark mine to remind myself on your 4 to 5 inch opening to turning your bag right side out. So go ahead and pin on your side seam up, take it to your sewing machine, and you'll sew side seam and sew to the opening and sew to the other opening, and remembering to leave that bottom part open. Press those seams open, and we'll move on to boxing the corner. Side seam meets bottom seam, pinning in place. Do the same thing to the other side. So a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Showing you a close-up of boxing those corners, making sure to back stitch at the beginning and at the end. And you'll trim that off on both of those corners. And now we're ready to move on to putting our bag together. We have our opening, leaving your lining wrong sides out, having your denim part right sides out. You will put the denim part of the bag inside the lining. So right sides are facing, making sure to stuff your handles inside too. You'll match up your side seams. Pin those in place. Match up the centers. And then I always make sure to pin my handles to make sure that they are straight. And then you're ready to take it to the sewing machine to sew all the way around that circle. This is a close-up sewing around the circle part. That's the top part of your bag. Doing it this way just makes it a nice clean finish once it's all done. And just taking your time, because when you're going over the handles, it can get a little thick. Turning your bag as you go, keeping everything straight. Now you will clip all the way around that circle, clip up to your stitching, but not through your stitching. If you have pinking shears, you can definitely use those to trim. And that's part of that handle gets a little thick there, so take me some time to get over that. And just cut all the way around. Now if you don't have pinking shears, you are clipping all the way around this circle. Makes it turn nicer when you turn your bag right side out. So through that opening in the lining, you'll pull your bag right side out, taking your time to do this, especially if you have lots of embellishments on your denim. Turn your bag right side out and turn the lining right side out. Push out all of the boxed corners on your lining and on your denim part of your bag. Next, you will sew up that opening. You can do it by hand or by machine. I just sew it by machine. Next, push your lining inside your bag and give your bag a really good press. And you're going to press that so that you can do top stitching is the next step, and then you're all done. So do a top stitch. You see the close-up of my top stitch all the way around. I increased my top stitch to, again, 3.5 to 3.6. You can use a decorative stitch on this part too if you like. But at this part, your purse is all done. Your appliques are on, your denim upcycled pocket is on, your magnetic snap and pockets on the inside. I added some buttons on the top of the bag, just hand sewing those on. Here's the inside of the lining, nice and clean. I added buttons and beads on some of those centers, but I hope you like it. Hope you give it a try.